Adoption of agendas. Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Decker, that the council adopt the agendas for the meeting of March 19th, 2019.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor's report. On Thursday, March 28th at 7 p.m., the Thorold Mounts will face off against the Thorold minor hockey coaches and alumni in a charity hockey game to help a refugee family come to Canada. Tickets are $8 for adults and $5 for students and seniors. Tickets are available at the Thorold Community Credit Union, Front Row Sports, and the Thorold Community Arena. Let's fill the arena for this night. It's a great cause. Nominations are still being accepted for the Senior of the Year Award. Nomination forms are available at Thorold City Hall, the Ontario Paper Thorold Senior Citizen Centre, Thorold Public Library, Thorold Arena, and the Thorold Community Activities Group. The deadline for submissions is Friday, March 29th. On Thursday, March 21st, residents are invited to participate in a citywide comprehensive zoning bylaw open house to be held at City Hall from 3 to 5 p.m. Drop in and speak with city planners to ask questions about our new zoning bylaw. Tomorrow night, the city will host an open house for the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan. Our consultants will be here in the council chambers from 7 to 9 p.m. to hear from residents. Stop by and share your thoughts about the future of recreation in Thorold. Have your say about how we play. The Ontario government has released its survey regarding regional government reform. The questionnaire consists of 17 questions and is open to the public until April 23rd. The link will be available on the new city website by the end of the week, as well as the City of Thorold Facebook site. I'd like to see a great response. Let's get everybody filling out that survey, and let's make sure your thoughts are known. Also, the Runway of Recognition Annual Awards Banquet will be held Tuesday, March 26th at John Michael's Banquet Center. And Councillor Whalen will mention a little bit more about this in his presentation. That's it for the Mayor's report. Now I'd like to call up Regional Councillor update, Councillor Tim Whalen on the Niagara Region 2019 budget.
Good evening, Mayor Ugolini and councillors. I'd like to start off with a highlight about what happened at the region with respect to our budget. When I was here last time, I think I announced doom and gloom about the 5.8%, but thankfully with a sharp pencil and staff, and especially the police force going back and sharpening the pencils, we brought that down to 3.8%. So what this relates to is the average property of a $267,000, an increase in the tax bill of $56 for 2019. So bad enough because nobody likes to see any increase, but what they're doing with that $56 is quite impressive. Some of the items that they're putting into fruition is $13.9 million to Niagara Regional Transit. This equates to the purchase of 13 new buses. It's unbelievable what the cost of these buses are. The ones you see on the street are $600,000 a piece, and the tandem ones are $1 million. So, but what this will do, it'll bring the region to line with the intermingling of the regional transit, and the region will be all set and ready to go when this comes to fruition over the next short while. To go along with that, there's $16.1 million to the Martindale Road reconstruction, $6 million to Thorold Stone Road extension, $10 million to the Casablanca Boulevard widening, and $11.5 million to the Grimsby Water Treatment Plant system storage, and $21 million to the DeQ treatment plant update. So there's quite a bit that's going on with this $56. It doesn't sound like much, but it's over the region, so it adds up. And I don't know whether anyone's got any questions to that, but I've got a few more other updates also, Mayor Ugolini, if you don't mind.
By means, go ahead, Councillor Whalen.
I guess everybody's aware that I was resentenced to another 3 months of the NPCA. So, but on the plus side, that things are coming along greatly. We've appointed a temporary CAO. Her name is Gail Wood. And what a breath of fresh air. For example, tomorrow morning we've got a meeting at 9:30. She'll be at the door greeting people at 8:15, just letting everybody know that she's there and open the door to be a little bit more transparent and open to what we've been used to in the past. Gail brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise in conservation leadership to the NPCA. She's been many years as a CAO of the Nottawasaga Valley, Kamouraska, and the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authorities. So we're looking good things out of Gail. And what I've understand with our clerk here in Thorold, the appointment for my replacement, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Clerk, that April or towards the end of May, you'll be looking for representation, and I imagine we'll be on the city website when that comes to fruition when you're looking for a replacement. But at the regional level, what we're looking at is having a template of different varieties of expertise on the NPCA. There's 5 municipalities that are ready to go now, so hopefully we get a good person to fill your site from the city here. So we're looking for good things on the NPCA to just keep continuing to be more open and transparent and fiscally responsible to the people of Niagara and Hamilton and Holton. And at the public health meeting today, we heard a presentation from EMS. Unfortunately, their calls have gone up 55.6% over the last year, so they're quite busy. So what I understand, I guess that the city is pretty close to hiring or appointing a new fire chief here in Thorold. So one of might ask the mayor and council is to work with the fire chief and see what they can do to help out EMS as far as who makes what calls to what extent of priorities on the list. And I think it's probably been, maybe half a dozen years since we've really looked at it here in Thorold. So something to keep in mind when you get a new chief in place. And other than that, just to reiterate again about Mayor Ugolini, the runway recognition, like I say, is a week tonight. Tickets have gone quite well. We still have a few left, but don't be left out if you hope to go next Tuesday. So there's still only $20. We have them at the Thorold Credit Union, and the more out, the better. So that's about it for me. I don't know whether anybody's got any questions as far as the region goes.
Are there any questions for Councillor Whalen? I want to thank you for showing up here tonight and giving us an update. And of particular interest is the DQ water treatment plant upgrade, because the DQ water treatment plant actually supplies most of the city of Thorold with their drinking water. So that's a great project for the city of Thorold. No other questions? Thank you so much, Councillor Whalen.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to being back again.
And we'll move on to the adoption of minutes. Council and General Committee meeting minutes of March 5th, 2019. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Sentence, that the regular Council and General Committee meetings held minutes of March 5th, 2019 be hereby adopted.
Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 21st, 2019. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that the General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 21st be hereby adopted. That's right.
Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 26, 2019. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Decker, that the General Committee budget meeting minutes of February 26, 2019 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, I'll move into the public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act. Proposed amendment to the City of Thorold Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2140-97, read 24 Renfrew Drive to facilitate a future severance for a single detached dwelling, D-14-13-2018. This public meeting is being held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 C.P. 13 as amended. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the rear portion of the lands from institutional I-4 zone to residential first density R1A zone to permit a future severance of the lands for a single detached dwelling. A sign-in sheet located at the back if you wish to receive a copy of the decision of City Council. At the same table, copies of the staff report are available for information. Up first, a presentation of the proposed amendment. I'd like to call up Adele Arbor, Planning Consultant. Welcome, Adele. It's good to see you back in the council chambers.
Thank you. Mayor Ugolini and Council, it's a pleasure to be in Thorold again and presenting on this side of the podium. The property subject to this evening's zoning bylaw amendment application is located on the south side of St. David's Road, east of Tupper Drive, and has been zoned institutional with a special exception, I-4, for over 20 years, and has originally been set aside for a fluoridation plant. The Paceros purchased the property back in 2003 from the city at a value based on the highest and best use of the property, that being residential. And this was added to their adjacent property, as mentioned, municipally known as 24 Renfrew Drive. This technically created a through lot with access for both Renfrew Drive and St. David's Road. A 1-foot reserve remains along the frontage of St. David's Road and will require removal at the time of the severance application. I believe it was intended, after the Paceros purchased the property, that the city would rezone the subject lands to residential first density R1A when housekeeping amendments were undertaken by the city. However, 2 housekeeping amendments later that were undertaken by the city did not include this property. As mentioned by the mayor in his opening remarks, this is a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment being requested to facilitate a severance for a single lot at the rear portion of the property along St. David's Road. The subject property is located in the urban area, a settlement area, and is characteristic of an established residential neighborhood with primary single detached dwellings. Provincial, regional, and municipal policies support the intensification of existing properties to promote more efficient use of lands in the built-up area. I am of the opinion that the proposed development represents intensification which maintains compatibility of the surrounding neighborhood, utilizes existing infrastructure, is appropriate and desirable development, and represents good planning. In conclusion, I am in agreement with the zoning bylaw amendment with site-specific provisions, which is before council this evening for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. Is there any questions for Adele? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Adele, can we, or I don't know if this is directed, should be directed towards planning. Is there any guarantee? I've talked to about 7 residents on Renfrew. They're fine with the application. They are concerned. They just want to make sure it's not a multi-room bathroom student residence. So is there any guarantee that that's not going to transpire?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, it's my understanding that the municipality has proper zoning provisions within the bylaw to regulate. The R1 zone permits a single-family dwelling. There is some restriction, if you see in the site-specific bylaw, regarding the maximum width of the driveway, which kind of precludes if you're looking at multiple residential. And you're probably best to ask your staff if there is anything specific in the zoning bylaw, but my understanding there is enough safeguards, and it is the intent of the Paceros to develop the property for a single detached dwelling, which is permitted under the R1A.
Any other questions? Thank you, Adele, for your presentation. I'd like to call up now from city staff, Denise Landry, Senior Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a brief presentation just to go off of what Adele had to say previously regarding the application. So a zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted for 24 Renfrew Drive. The application is to rezone the rear portion of the lands from institutional I4 zone to residential first density R1A zone to permit a future severance of the lands for a single detached dwelling. The lands, as mentioned previously, are located on the north side of Renfrew, south of St. David's, and are adjacent to the city of St. Catharines. The portion of the lands that are subject of the application are zoned institutional I-4 zone in accordance with the zoning bylaw and are identified in red on the slide. The zone permits institutional type uses such as a cemetery, place of worship, nursing home, school, assembly hall, club, public or private school, and accessory provisions. There's also a site-specific provision on the subject lands permitting a fluoridization plant. The portion of the property that fronts onto Renfrew Drive is zoned residential first density, R1A zone, and are identified in blue on the slide. The lands surrounding the property are also zoned residential first density, R1A zone. The subject lands are designated urban living area in the official plan. The permitted uses within the designation include single detached dwellings, and the following uses subject to policies outlined within the official plan: accessory apartments, semi-detached dwellings, townhouse dwellings, apartment dwellings, home occupations, bed and breakfast establishments, parks and open space, and complementary uses. The application was circulated for comment as per the Planning Act. No objection or concerns were received from Enbridge, Canada Post, the Ministry of Transportation, Niagara Region. An engineering division has identified that services are to come from St. Catharines, and this would be addressed during the future severance of the property. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Denise. Is there any questions for the presenter? Seeing none, I thank you for your presentation. Move on to public participation, public input. If a person or public body chooses to not provide oral comments at the public meeting or written comments before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. Now at this time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Is there anyone to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, I'll move on to closing remarks and closing of the meeting. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 C.P.13, pursuant to Section 34. The City's General Committee will consider staff's recommendation report, which will subsequently be considered by City Council at a future date. Anyone wishing to receive a copy of City Council's decision as a result of this application is asked to submit their request in writing to the City Clerk. As such, the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. We have no civic recognition. We'll move on to presentations, and I'd like to welcome Craig Finley, Chair of Thorold Heritage, LACAC, presentation of Annual Thorold Heritage Recognition Award. Welcome, Craig.
There it is. Okay. We're good. First thing Councillor Whalen told me to do is turn on the mic, and I blew it already. Mr. Mayor and Council, it is my pleasure to be with you this evening. It has been the practice of Heritage Thorold to celebrate Heritage Week by recognizing individuals or groups for their contributions to the preservation of heritage in Thorold. We're a little late this year getting to you because of a couple of timing conflicts. This evening, we have 3 recipients of the Heritage Thorold Heritage Recognition Award. The first is Tony Vandermaas. I'll ask Tony to join me here. Can you make the trip over? Tony has been an active volunteer on many community committees and projects, including the role of city councillor. Since moving to Thorold in 1984, starting in his youth, Tony has had strong interest in history, especially in his hometown of Grimsby, and later in the city of Thorold. He has researched local history and has used it for his series of novels for young readers, which use the War of 1812 as its backdrop. Tony has served on every history heritage-related committee in Thorold. These include Heritage Thorold Lacac, Thorold Beaver Dams Historical Society, the War of 1812 Bicentennial Committee, and the Friends of Beaver Dams Church. Tony has been Thorold's official town crier since 1997 and has performed at countless city events. He has participated in over 30 Heritage Thorold building designation ceremonies. He has always written his cry for each ceremony, and his presence, enhanced by his uniforms sewn by his wife Penny, has added great color and pageantry to the occasion. It is our pleasure to recognize Tony's extraordinary dedication to history and heritage this evening. Congratulations. Thank you. Well done. I would now call forward Brenda Stokes for Warren and Charles for Warren. Brenda and Charles are the owners of the James H. Beattie House, which stands on the northeast corner of Pine Street and Town Line Roads. I'll have you visualize that right now. You all know the house, I'm sure. Construction on the house began in 1868 and was completed in the early 1870s. This Grand Victorian exhibits Italianate and classic revival elements. It was built by James Hughes Beattie, one of the children of Francis and William Beattie. The Beattie family is rivaled only by the Kiefer family in commerce, engineering, and national notoriety in the history of our city. A cousin, Sir Edward Beattie, was the chairman of the board of the Canadian Pacific Railway. The Beattie family made its fortune in lumber and shipping, and the Beattie Steamship Corporation became one of 3 companies to merge as the Canada Steamship Company, whose ships to this day have a black, white, and red ring on their stacks. The red is in reference to the Beattie Steamship Company. So when you see one going through the canal, look for that red ring. Charles purchased the home in 1983, soon to be joined by his new bride, Brenda. Heritage Thorold recognizes this evening the time, planning, care, work, and money which Brenda and Charles have given to this building over the past 36 years. The exterior brick has been cleaned, the trim and windows restored and replaced where necessary, the utility systems replaced. This home has 2 furnaces and 6 fireplaces, and the interior refurbished in authentic detail. All work has been completed to a very high heritage standard, and Brenda and Charles have been active workers on the project. Well, this has been a wonderful home for Brenda and Charles to raise their daughter and son. It has continued to be a landmark property in our city, and their efforts will ensure that it will remain as such for future generations. Brenda and Charles, Heritage Thorold Lacac salutes your stewardship of the James H. Beattie House and is very pleased to recognize you this evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for all the work you do in the community.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to motions for support. City of Thorold Financial Administration and Governance of Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Decker, that the correspondence received from the town of Fort Erie from its council meeting of February 25th, 2019, requesting that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority provide full and transparent accounting of all spending in its 2018 and 2019 operating and capital budgets to the Niagara Region Council and to continue to do so for each subsequent year and further. That the provincial government amend the Conservation Authorities Act to provide responsible municipalities within the watershed of the Conservation Authority greater oversight over the Conservation Authority budgets, including, but not necessarily limited to, the ability to approve, reject, or modify budget presented by the Conservation Authority in any given year, and the ability to withhold funding should a Conservation Authority fail to provide a full and transparent accounting of its revenues and expenditures, as reasonably requested from time to time, be received and supported.
Any discussion? Being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. City of Thorold, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we all know, there's a couple of projects that we have submitted into the federal government underneath the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. The provincial government has just launched their part of that particular program, and it sounds very good. Lots of money, $30 billion over the next few years. There's 4 parts to this particular program. One is the rural and northern program. Second one is the public transit section of it. The third is the green initiatives. And the fourth is the community, culture, and recreation. And they just finished putting this forward to the general public. However, the province has decided that the first round of applications will focus solely on projects meant to improve road, bridge, air, and marine infrastructure. The municipalities and indigenous communities with populations under 100,000 are eligible for that specific program. We have to have it in between the 18th of March and 8 weeks hence in order to get funding from the province. This has put us in an untenable position because the other 3 parts to the program, because only the rural and northern part of the program is being put forward at this time, is the public transit, the green initiatives, but more importantly is the community, culture, and recreation part of it. So the projects that we have sent in to the federal government, which I know that they are looking at very favorably on, but the funding from the province isn't there. And who knows when the province will come forward with the other 3 initiatives for that particular program. So therefore, because of it, I have a resolution that I'd like to bring forward, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that whereas the Ontario government must recognize the importance of job creation in contributing to local capital needs that are vital to communities across Niagara and the province, and this includes the Canada Games, by the way. And whereas the federal government have been focused on getting the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program intake open by applying maximum pressure on the province of Ontario to deliver more immediate results for our collective constituents. And whereas the federal government have reached out to FCM and AMO, which are 2 of our municipal programs, in addition to other stakeholders, to arm them with the facts and to engage them early. And whereas the City of Thorold have in detail provided MP Badaway with infrastructure projects, outlining requisite materials to engage departments within the federal government and the province of Ontario. And whereas the amount of federal funding available under the Integrated Bilateral Agreement signed by the province of Ontario on March 18, 2018 totals $11.9 million. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Thorold demands that the Ontario government commit to a 3-year infrastructure plan and immediately open intakes for all 4 streams under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, so as to maximize the number of projects we can build together for Ontarians in 2019 and years ahead, that this be received and supported. And just further on that, Mr. Mayor, is that this particular program is something that I think we need. And unfortunately, the Ontario government, and this is on my own opinion, is that there's a federal election this year, and they're holding back on these projects until after the election to make the federal government look bad. But that's just my own opinion. So, Mr. Mayor, I move that.
So is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Neal. Statement by councillors. I have Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one in particular tonight is that I had another one, I withdrew it, is in regards to a marijuana facility that is located in Cataract Road between Port Robinson and Merritt Street. I've been receiving some calls lately in regards to the odor that's being emitted from it, and honestly, I really didn't know that it actually existed there. I knew at one time of a facility that was trying to be established on Hurricane Road in Thorold, which I brought to the attention of council back at the time. No application was brought forward. And I've received a fact sheet here in regards to cannabis production, but talking to the individual, and I read here that it says that there's no legislation out there in regards to the odor. Provincially or federally there isn't, but I do believe municipally we can. I believe, unfortunately, I just got word of this a couple of days ago and I haven't had time to do a little research on it myself, but I will. I do believe that the problem has been with municipalities and the odors is that the fines that are in place for the amounts aren't sufficient enough and don't deter the individuals from reducing the stench. So, through you to the appropriate staff member, can we put a bylaw in place, or could I put a motion forward that we can control the odor as a municipality and we can set fines? Would we be able to do that? Through you, Mr. Mayor,
to the chief building official.
To the chief building official, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if we are able to pass a bylaw to regulate odor. It's something that I would have to look into further.
Can we get a, do you want to ask for a staff report then?
Yeah, could I get a staff report in regards to the odor? Because like I said, I hadn't been able to talk. I did call yesterday the cannabis hotline or whatever. I did talk to a couple of individuals in regards to it. They did give me a couple of links. I just haven't had the opportunity to do it. But from what I could, the gist of what I could get is that the federal and the provincial government saying that it is the municipality's responsibility to regulate and control odors emitting from marijuana production facilities, be it medical marijuana or for recreational use. So if I could put a motion forward on the floor that we could report back as to, can we?
I need a seconder.
Seconder.
Councillor Neal.
In regards to such, wording could be through the clerk, please, if you could word it for me. Basically, it's a report to come back in regards to how we may be able to curtail or regulate
the
odor from marijuana production facilities in the city of Thorold. And if I could just add one other thing, is that I honestly don't remember me ever being made aware that there was one in Thorold. And if that's the case, and it's my understanding, okay, if a place is zoned or there's proper zoning in place for this type of facility exists, being agricultural, I still believe something like this should be brought to council attention that it may be going to exist, because I was really blindsided with the fact that it did exist, because I don't think anybody here ever knew that we had a grow up here in Thorold. Nobody that I talked to. And I don't think that's fair to me as a councillor, because when I was called yesterday, I adamantly said to the individual, I didn't approve no marijuana grow up. He says, well, I got it right here in front of me. Here's the address. I called Marijuana Canada or whatever, or Cannabis Canada, and they told me that they're a licensed, federally licensed facility, and I had no inkling or clue that this ever existed. And to me, I find it really unfair as a councillor, seeing that the debate that's been about the license of marijuana, and that in the future, that we be notified, or at least kept up to date, that someone's actually applying for one of these in the city of Thorold, because we really had no opportunity to even debate the issue of whether or not We wanted one. We did accept as a municipality to allow the sale of marijuana in our facility and opted into that. But as far as being an area or municipality for the production of marijuana, it really hasn't been discussed in council. And I think that needs to be brought forward and that stuff, so we're made aware and we're not blindsided when an operation like this all of a sudden pops up and I'm left with no explanation for the individuals involved.
So I've got Councillor Neal. Did you want to speak on that? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Hanley, and Pelham's been going through with this for the last 2 years, I believe, both with the odor and also with the lighting of these facilities. And I believe there's been some articles in the newspaper about it, and I believe anyone starting one up has to have, specifically the odor, to have it contained in their building. And there are rules and regulations. I know Pelham probably has everything that we need in order to put a bylaw forward for this purpose. And not just for the odors. I believe we should make sure that we have everything covered as far as having a marijuana project in Thorold. And I didn't realize we had one either. It's never come through council, so I presume it's never come to planning or anything of that nature, so I don't know how they got away with it.
Do you want to comment on this, the Director of Planning, Tamara?
Through your worship, no, it hasn't come as an application per se. It's regarded as a crop at this point. It can operate in a greenhouse, not dissimilar to any other vegetation that may be grown. At this point, we're proposing within the new zoning bylaw licensed marijuana production facilities, that they be located in M4 zone, which is the rural industrial lands, and that they be on the facility itself. Again, it's the separation distance from other uses would be only 150 meters. And that would be the extent of our ability to regulate the use.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. I was also blindsided by a call that I received regarding this cannabis area there. I didn't even know we had one as well. I guess my concern is, when we get these types of calls, whose responsibility is it then to get back to these individuals to provide them with information, or you know, how do we respond to them, or like what is the protocol when it comes to something like this?
I hate to put Jason on the spot, but a chief building official, I think, would be a good place to direct any concerns. Am I correct, Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So currently, as the City of Thorold does not have a bylaw in place to try and regulate them in any manner, if it depends on what the complaint is regarding. Currently, if it's with regards to the odor, unfortunately, there isn't anything we can do at this point in time. But there has been a report requested, so it's something we will look into further. If they have questions specific to the operation of the facility, those questions can go to Health Canada. And I provided all of council with a fact sheet that does include the contact phone number for Health Canada. Health Canada takes care of the licensing and inspections of all these facilities. If it is pertaining to a crop, an outdoor crop, so just the farming practices, that would be dealt with by OMAFRA, again, federal. And if it's an potentially illegal use, then that would be referred to or directed to the Niagara Regional Police. But if it's specific to odor only emitting from the buildings, at this point in time, there isn't any legislation that controls that, and that's something that we'll have to look into further.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the appropriate staff member. I'm just wondering kind of what the process is. So when a business wants to set up shop in Thorold, is there an application process for them to get a business license here, and then that we would know if they're although it might be a greenhouse, what they're planning to produce in that greenhouse? That would, if we put something in place, would then give us a heads up to decide if that's the appropriate location or how we want to deal with resident complaints around that area.
I'll leave that with the Director of Planning, Tamara.
Through your worship, at this point, the licensing is issued by Health Canada at the federal level, and I think part of the application, the applicant would have to show that the use is permitted in this building or in the lands, and that would be the extent of it. Odor would not be regulated, and if it is, it would be by whatever filtration system the federal government has established. At this point, the only odors, anything in terms of provincial regs, the only thing that regulates odors is the minimum distance separation from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and that has to do with livestock odors, and that's it. It's a difficult sort of, it's not an entity, but a thing to regulate, because odors emanate from chicken coops, from flower gardens, from everything. So at this point, the study will probably analyze that and provide a better answer to you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think it might have been misunderstood. I meant like an actual business license, so not one to grow marijuana, but like if you want to start a business in Thorold, do you apply for a business license like we do dog tags? Like I know several municipalities have that in place.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, currently the City of Thorold does not have business licensing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Your Worship. The licensing of the retail cannabis is through the Provincial Alcohol and Gaming Commission. The municipality is not permitted to regulate the retail sales of it, and the medical production falls through the feds. So that would be the difference.
You got it answered? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Sorry, just on that, just because it happened to be a topic of conversation for me today, not with regards to this, but as I understand, other municipalities do have business licensing, and part of it is an awareness for the city to know what's going on, and not that it's something we're regulating for municipalities so that we know what types of businesses are open. It's also an income source. I don't think they're much. They're like $25 or $50. Or I could be totally off there, but it might be something that we want to put a motion forward to get a report from council to see if that's feasible, if that makes sense for us to become more educated about what's going on in our city from a business standpoint.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Just reiterating Councillor Neal and Councillor Hanley's comment, I totally agree. Is there any way, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city building official, is there any way we can create a bylaw? Because I know, or even just observe what Pelham's doing, because there is technology to reduce the smell or get rid of it, and there's also technology for the light, and it is expensive though. And this is one of the things that's been brought up in Pelham. So in the report, maybe we can consult with Pelham to see what they're doing right now. My question is there a bylaw we can create? If it's going to upset residents, I don't think it's fair to taxpayers to have that odor if it can be limited through a costly
Councillor DeRose, we're getting a report, and then that report will come back and we'll generate forward from that. That's the motion. What's that? Yes, go ahead.
Councillor Hanley, yes. Would our meeting of April 16th be a good deadline to affix to this item? Pardon? For the report to come back April 16th, is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's good, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that issue? On the other issue, that's a separate issue, okay? On this issue. So we have a motion on the floor for a staff report, and it's regarding the odor issue, but what else? Can you read it? Yeah.
That the chief building official be directed to prepare a report about the potential for the municipality to pass a bylaw related to odors emanating from marijuana grow facility, and that this report be presented to council on April 16th, 2019.
Did you want anything added? Are you good with that?
We're good.
You're good? You see the motions on the floor? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so I don't have any other statement by councillors, but if you want to bring under notices of motion, you can bring that. You're going to bring something forward next meeting. Okay? So we'll move on to notices of motion. Do I have any notices of motion? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to, I've never done this, make a notice of motion that I'm going to bring a motion forward. Not next council meeting, because I actually will be in Cuba. So the one after, on the 19th, that I request a staff report to see if it makes sense for us to have business licensing, to look at other municipalities that are doing that as a way to better communicate with staff and council.
Okay. So that, you'll work with the clerk, work with Donna on that, and then staff will know, like, you know, that that's something we want to investigate. Okay. We're going to resolve into general committee now. I'd like to call to order. Is there any declaration of interest? Where do I do it? Okay, so I want to add an item to the agenda. And do you want to?
Can someone please put a motion on the floor that we add an in-camera item to the agenda related to Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation solicitor-client privilege?
Councillor Kenny, and it's okay. Okay, so no delegations. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Carried. No delegations. Call for reports to be brought forward from consent. So you've seen the consent reports. Are there any consent reports that you want brought forward for discussion? Councillor Neal.
CA 2019-02.
CA 2019-2?
Yes.
Okay. Everything else good? So what I'm going to do is I'll call the question on the consent reports without CAO 2019-02, which we'll deal with separately. Okay? So I call the rest of them. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, CAO 2019-02, Tourism Services Agreement. Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I was looking over it and discussing it with a couple of people, and a one-year contract is not enough for the provider to look after a number of issues that might be over the yearly mandate that they have at the present moment. You know, there's tours that they have to look at and maybe get contracts for, a number of things that happen over a year, specifically between, say, October and April of the following year, in other words, this year. We're just passing the budget now for this particular item, and they've been working without a contract for the first 3 months of the year. And so I think that particular situation shouldn't be. We should at least have a 2-year contract, if not a 3-year contract, or even the term of council contract. So what I would like to do is put a motion forward that we extend it to a 2-year contract.
So first of all, you have a motion. I'd like to, we have a motion on the floor. I don't need a second. Right? Okay. So you want an amendment to the report that the 1-year contract be extended to 2 years? Okay. Is there any discussion on that report? And then I'd also like the CAO to speak on it. I'll have Councillor Hanley first and then Councillor Sentence, okay?
In regards to procurement policy, with extended to a 2-year deal, would that affect our procurement policies as well as being a fair tender practice and allowing other people to submit a bid in regards to supplying us with a 2-year tourism deal? Because now we're extending the contract beyond 1 year. And I do believe we have a procurement policy that anything over $20,000, I believe, has to be put out for a tender in regards to, especially now if we're doing tourism. So just to ask the proper staff member, please.
Director of Finance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you are correct, but I believe that even at this level, it should have went through the RFP process. So I'm not certain what criteria or methodology the CAO used to appoint. Maybe he can comment on that part.
Go ahead, CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have been asked last year that same question, that we should have a multiple year contract with them. The reason why we have continued with them up to this point is Council has directed us sometime in October or late last year that we would continue with this company, Venture Niagara, who has been providing tourism services to us. The reason why we have put only 1 year contract, the couple of reasons. One is that later this year we are going to hire an economic development officer. That's number one. Number two is that also we are going to do our strategic plan this year, and so with all those documents we'll see what other components has to go into this contract, and then rather than having a multiple contract and we are locked into this, we just thought it is, if we can have a 1 year contract with the service provider to the end of the year, we will be in a better position later this year to see what our needs are, what we need to do. And then we should go through an open bidding process with a scope of work, and then this company can also bid on it, but we will allow others to bid on it as well. Thank you.
That answer your question, Councillor Hanlon?
Thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both questions were answered, if we could do it, and what the reasoning was behind the 1 year planning. So I'm not against it, I'm for it down the road, but I just didn't know the background of it, so thank you.
So my question to Councillor Neal, are you happy then with the 1 year and withdraw your motion for 2 years?
I'll withdraw the motion.
And we'll vote on it as stated, okay? Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question, and it's going to be just as it's stated. It's going to be a 1 year contract. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Discussion reports. CC.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
If I could, I just wanted to do in regards to the government's consent report in regards to governance. I know that there's a government's...
you can comment. We already voted on them all.
Okay, sorry.
But you want to comment on
I just want to comment on the fact is that as a municipality and as a group, will we be doing any brainstorming together in regards to how we feel government? I know you as a mayor and the other mayors are doing it, but when you read the actual report, it states that council would be a part of it, which we really haven't. It says that on March 7th, 2019, the Committee of the Whole considered the joint request and subsequently passed a motion seeking local area municipal in brackets council feedback.
So what's happening, just so you know.
Okay, yeah.
That come about with the mayors at the meeting. It went to the region. The region sent it back so all the locals sign on, and then it goes to the region meeting on the 28th. Then they hire the company. The company will work with the region and the cities to develop the questions and move forward as a group. But we're not going to put 100 questions out there. No. If you see the province one, it was 17 questions. Yeah. So we're going to strategically look, and we'll be asking for feedback from every local municipality plus the region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And also, as directed by the head of councils and the regional chair, on March 8th, 2019, earlier this month, the area CEOs met and they discussed the initiative outlined in this report and formed a subcommittee. And the focus of the subcommittee is to coordinate the efforts to retain a government relations company or firm. And they will advise on the appropriate companies to be considered, select a said company, prepare sample questions to be used for public polling, and guide the head of councils throughout the procurement process to ensure a successful conclusion, and heads of council will ensure that their own council and regional council are kept apprised of the process. So that's the process that we are following.
And our CAO is part of that subcommittee. Yes. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to discussion report CC 2019-23, newspaper advertising of public notices, and I'll turn this over to City Clerk Donna Delvecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is back again before council, and the recommendation is that the advertising of public notices for the City of Thorold not be awarded to either of the two bidders, and that advertising of public notices be undertaken in-house. This doesn't exclude us from putting an advertisement in a newspaper if we feel we needed a greater outreach, or that is obviously legislated, and that if we're going to go that route, our Chief Administrative Officer would be providing the sign-off for us to proceed that way. That concludes the report.
Any discussions on the report? I had Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was excited to read this because I have had a few phone calls since our last discussion about how this paper is delivered, and so it's great to see that we're able to do it in-house, and we're not like upholding anything in terms of legislative requirements, but maybe that will also give Niagara This Week a different opinion on how they deliver to our residents and the waste that it creates in our neighborhood. So thank you for your work on that. City Clerk.
And I think, can you just give us an update on the website so that everyone's aware? Our new website is...
So we are launching our new website starting tomorrow. It's going to be a soft launch for now, as we know that there are some items that are, or pages that we may have missed. It's going to give staff about a month's time before we roll it out to everybody. But as part of the new website, we have a lot more functionality than what we had in the past. One of them is to receive news alerts. So every time we post one of 8 different types of things, notices is one of them. If you've signed up, the user will automatically get an email. So that should help us better communicate with the public.
We are coming into the 20th century.
So as of about 3 p.m. on Thursday, our website is going to be thorold.ca. But if you still visit our old site, it will redirect you over to the new site.
Did Councillor Hanley have a question? Go ahead.
Could we possibly in the comments, it's great that we're doing it, but in order, you know, if this is how people are going to access the information, when we send our water bills out, maybe we could put an insert in there. I see this clerk has something there, right?
I've already met with our communications officer to do an outreach plan. That's going to be going out mid to late May. Once we get all the hiccups resolved with the website, hopefully there's not many.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so you said earlier that it doesn't restrict us from going to other avenues or other advertising if we feel so in the future, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the report in front of us. Any more discussion on the report? Councillor Kenny.
Yes, I just didn't understand where you were going to, what the criteria would be if it went in the paper or not. I understood what you're saying, but...
So if it's legislated that it says it must go in a published newspaper, or, yeah, a published newspaper would be it, or if it was a public meeting that had a huge impact, we would be doing something more to promote it.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So what are we going to do? Do the council committee. Before? Yeah. Okay. And what about these? Okay. Okay. Before we go into camera, we're going to do our bylaws. And just so everybody's aware, when we're doing the bylaws tonight, we're officially rubber stamping and passing the budget. Okay? Because the budget is one of the bylaws. So I want everybody to be aware that tonight we're officially passing the budget. Okay. First reading of the bylaws, Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 39, 2019 through to Bylaw 47, 2019, a bylaw, and that the same now be read a first time.
Any discussions on that? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? See a raise of hands, please. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Final reading of bylaws. Councillor Decker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that the bylaws just read a first time to be read a second and third time, and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Council committee and board meeting minutes. Minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor DeRose, that council receive and follow the minutes of the committees of council local boards as presented.
Any discussion on that? Any discussion on any of those minutes? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes to endorse recommendations. We'll do these separate. Okay. Downtown Parking Committee, Councillor Wilson. Minutes of January 25th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neal, that council adopt the recommendations contained within the city clerk's memo of March 8th, 2019.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thorold Active Transportation Advisory Committee minutes of February 13th, 2019. Councillor DeRose.
Is that for you, Mr. Mayor? Is it March 13th or?
February 13th.
February. Okay. The council adopt the recommendations contained within the city clerk's memo that are contained within the memo related to the Active Transportation Committee. We've passed new terms of reference. There's been a lot of progress with the new people that have come aboard, Rhiannon Burkholder, Dean Taylor, and Justin Cunningham. And we've got a lot of things to look forward to in the future. A good group of people that are very enthusiastic.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Age-Friendly Committee minutes of February 14th, 2019. Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Decker, that the council adopt the recommendations contained within the city clerk's memo of March 15th, 2019.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now I need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Wilson. In accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is regarding disposition of municipal lands and solicitor-client privilege. Can I have a motion to go in camera? I got Councillor Wilson. And number one will be the Director of Planning and Development Services verbal report, Lot 67 and 68 Upper Lane. City Clerk verbal report on Thorold Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation. And number three item will be to adopt the minutes of February 25th and March 5th in camera general committee meetings. And now proceed to go in camera.